Hello everyone, welcome to the editorial analysis of Shankar IAS Academy, 22nd March 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we will be discussing today. The first article, allocation to Madrasa and Waqf education scheme slashed almost to nil in 2024-2025. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about in the recent budget, the center has slashed the budget allocation to Madrasa and Waqf education schemes to almost nil, and this has raised a lot of concern about the Muslim education in India. So we will be discussing what is the current status of Muslim education in India and what are the challenges associated with this. And in the second article, India's marginalized parliament in budgetary affairs, the article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about the limited role of the parliament in the budgetary affairs of India. So in this topic we will be discussing what are those issues and what reforms can be taken to ensure the better participation of parliament in the budgetary affairs. So without much delay, let's get into our discussion with the first article. India's marginalized parliament in budgetary affairs. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu, which is talking about the limited role of parliament in the budgetary affairs of India. So we know that budget is annual financial statement which talks about the revenue and the expenditure of a government in a financial year, right? But if you look closely, the budget of a nation represents its vision, its priority, and at the same time the governance philosophy. For example, we know that now we are moving with an objective, that is the Vikasit Bharat 2047, and the recently released economic survey of India suggests that we need a constant GDP growth of 8% minimum to achieve the Vikasit Bharat 2047. And if you take the priority of the nation, you can see that we are looking for both the growth and development, and on the other side we are also giving equal priority to the welfare and the well-being of the people. And governance, ultimately democratic reforms with an objective of well-being and welfare of the people. So, but what this article is saying that currently in the budgetary affairs of India, the parliament has only limited role due to various reasons. The one of the reasons is we can see that the executive role is very high while the legislature role is very limited. And that is because if you look closely, you can see that the Ministry of Finance is totally responsible for the preparation of budget, and no people's representative or any other department or any other ministry has role in that. And next you can see that the limited role of the Rajya Sabha. The Rajya Sabha cannot amend or reject the provisions in the budget, right? And at the same time you can also see that the members of the majority party is following the directions of the whip. That means they cannot give suggest anything, or they cannot go against the provisions in the budget. So these type of restrictions are there which ultimately limits the role of parliament in the budgetary affairs. That's what this article is talking about. So let us discuss more about the article. So budget, more than a financial statement, like I mentioned, the budget of a nation reflects its national priority, economic vision and governance philosophy. And globally you can see the parliament shapes budget to ensure physical discipline and the transparency. But in the case of India, like I mentioned, due to certain factors, the role of parliament is very limited. And coming to India's weak parliamentary role in budgeting. So first is the executive dominance. That means, like I mentioned, the finance ministry is totally responsible for drafting the budget with the minimal cabinet input. And also the next is Rajya Sabha's limited role. Rajya Sabha cannot influence or vote on budget. And another issue is that the parliament can suggest changes, but at the same time we cannot increase the allocation to a particular ministry or to a particular program, but we can cut down the expenditure through the cut motion, but we don't have the power to increase the allocation or alter the tax policy. This is another limitation of the Indian parliament. And the next is lack of debate. That means the budget discussions are brief and ineffective. That means it is not covering the length and breadth of issues, and that's why it is reducing the accountability. And coming to the key reforms suggested in the article for strengthening the parliamentary oversight, first is the institutionalizing pre-budget discussions with the maximum participation of the representatives of the people, so they can address the concern, what are the problems they are facing, what are the issues in the draft, and they can also assess the physical health, and they can give more suggestions regarding the programs and policies. And this has to be held during the monsoon session for early engagement, and that should go at least 5 to 7 days of period with a maximum participation of the MPs. And the next is it enhances the coordination among the subject committees. We know that we have an estimate committee to to review the budget, but what the issue is that when the review report comes, by the time the implementation will be almost over, and that's why the article suggests we will another mechanism, that is PBO, that is Parliamentary Budget Office. We will discuss this. So coming to the benefits of this pre-budget discussion, first it democratizes budget making, ensures transparency and ensures public trust also. Like I mentioned, the representatives of the people will get more voice to address the concerns and the public issues, therefore it will be more democratic. And the next, it allows the public servants to voice the public concern. And the next is establishing a parliamentary budget office. So it provides an economic analysis and it assesses the impact of the fiscal policy. And if you take that, many nations, for example the United States of America, they have something called Congressional Budget Office, and in the case of Australia they have a PBO, that is a Parliamentary Budget Office, and in Canada they have a Parliamentary Budget Officer, and in UK they have a Office of Budget Responsibility. So this institution will they will study the draft, and they will assess the draft, and then they can make suggestions regarding what will be the impact of these policies, and they can suggest changes if it is necessary. And coming to the functions of this PBO, economic forecasting and fiscal policy evaluation, like I mentioned, they can study the draft and they can make suggestions. And next is preparing policy brief to enhance informed decision making. So now what the article is saying, that the limited role of the legislature and the increased role of the executive. So we know that the limited role of the the increased role of the executive can may be undemocratic, but on other side, if the legislature role or the involvement is too much, then it may lead to taking populist spending measures. That means to prioritize the government's interest and all. So however, unchecked executive control undermines the democracy. So here the people's participation is very less, that's why it is undemocratic. So a balanced system is needed to ensure accountability and maintain fiscal discipline of a nation. So how can we strengthen the financial governance in India? So this can be used as a way forward while you're writing a mains answer. First is a pre-budget discussions, like I mentioned, making sure that the maximum participation of the MPs, and the discussion should be at least for 5 to 7 days, and that should be held during the monsoon session for early engagement, right? And the next is the establishment of the Parliamentary Budget Office to ensure that the budget decisions reflect the collective deliberation, not just executive control. So the problem is executive control, and this can be balanced if you have an institution like PBO. And the next is enhancing transparency, prevents financial mismanagement, and aligns India with the global best practices. We know that many developed nations like United States of America, Canada, UK and Australia, they have the institution of the Parliamentary Budget Office. And the next is strengthens Parliament's role in shaping long-term economic policies. So like I mentioned, the Parliament has a limited role. That means the Parliament can discuss what are the provisions in the article in the budget, and what are the measures in the budget. They can suggest, but ultimately they cannot change. They cannot increase the allocation, or they cannot alter the tax policy. No power is given to the Parliament regarding this. So we have to strengthen the Parliament in such terms to enhance, to shape a long-term economic policy and stability in the nation. So in this topic, we discussed the problems, the concerns associated with the limited role of legislature in the budgetary affairs of India, and the concerns associated with the increased role of the executive in the budgetary affairs of India, and what are the measures can be taken to make a proper check and balance, and to ensure a long-term financial discipline and a long-term financial stability. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, India's parliamentary oversight is in budgetary affairs remains weak, limiting democratic accountability. Discuss the challenges in the current budget making process and suggest institutional reforms to strengthen Parliament's role. So this is a 15 marks question, and you have to write around 250 words and write the question, post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Now it's time to move to the next article. Allocations to Madrasa and Waqf education schemes slashed almost to nil in 2024-2025. Why in the news? Recently, the center had revealed that the budgetary allocation for Madrasa and Waqf education schemes had been slashed almost to nil, which means we know that the Gurukula Padashala and Madrasa played a vital role in preserving culture, belief, custom, and in providing and also providing education in the pre-modern times of the Indian subcontinent, right? But later the British people came and they changed a lot. They brought the Charter Act of 1813, which allocated 1 lakh rupees for the education institutions, and then they brought the Wood's Dispatch in the 1840s, and after that Hunter Commission came, and later in the 20th century we had the Universities Act of 1904. And all these initiatives in the modern times modernized the education system of the Indian subcontinent. But before that, the Madrasa and the Gurukula Padashala played a vital role in providing education. Now the central government slashed the budget allocation almost to nil in the 2024-2025 year. So in 2014, for example, in 2014 the budgetary allocation for the Waqf education scheme was almost 194 crore, but now it is zero. And this has raised a significant concern about the Muslim education in India. So let us discuss more about the article from the mains point of view. So coming to the education status of Muslims, you can see that the first major issue is the low literacy rate, which is just 79.5%, and it is also below the national average of 80.9%. And there's a decline in the higher education. That means 8% is 8% dropout in Muslim enrollment in the higher education, according to the All India Survey on Higher Education 2020-2021. And the next is high dropout rates at the higher secondary level. That is around 18.64%, which is higher than the national average, and the national average is 12.6%. So coming to the Waqf education schemes. So the word Waqf, it is taken from Arabic, which means gift. And Waqf, here the Waqf in this context means the properties or anything given for charity purpose, and we know that it is a part of charity, is a part of Islam culture. And now we have a lot of properties for this charity purpose, and to oversee the properties, Waqf properties, we have Waqf boards to manage the religious and charitable properties. And what are the schemes for the Waqf education? First we have the Qawmi Waqf Board Tarakiti scheme, which aims to modernize the Waqf properties. And then we have the Shahari Waqf Sampati Vikas Yojana, which supports urban Waqf properties for the community welfare, and the schemes are implemented by the Central Waqf Council. And coming to the scheme, that is the scheme for providing education to madrasas and minorities, and it was introduced in the year 2014-15, and it is under the Ministry of Minority Affairs. And what are the objectives? Modernizing the madrasa education, improving teacher training and infrastructure in madrasa. And coming to the funding, you can see that it is a centrally sponsored scheme, which means 60% is given by the central government and the remaining 40% is from the state government for almost every state except the Himalayan and northeastern states. In Himalayan and northeastern states, the central provides 90% fund, and the state government contributes 10%. And what eligibility? So who are all eligible for this scheme? First is madrasas mapped under the geographic information system, and the next is madrasas affiliated with the institutions affiliated with the recognized boards are eligible for the the scheme for providing education to madrasa and minority. So coming to the challenges of Muslim education in India, first you can see that the first challenges we already discussed: increasing rate of dropouts in the higher secondary, higher education, and the low literacy, which is below the national average we discussed. And now the government has cut off the fund as well, and for the schemes like Qawmi Waqf Board Tarakiti scheme, for that the government has reduced the fund. Then the Shahari Waqf Sampati Vikas Yojana, for that also the government has reduced the scheme. And the scheme for providing education for madrasas and minorities, which was launched in the year 2014, and that time the fund allocated for this was around 194 crore, but now it is zero. And the next is another challenge is madrasa closure. That is the low literacy rate is among the Muslim communities very high in Assam and West Bengal. And recently we can see that the state funded, the government funded madrasas in Assam in 2021 were closed. And here we can see the statistics of budgetary allocation for the scheme for providing education for madrasas and minorities. So in the year in the year 2021, it was 174 CR, and in 2022-2023 it was 30 CR, and in the year 2023-2024 it was 5 CR, and now it is 0. So like I mentioned, currently the allocation for the SPEMM scheme is 0. And coming to the next challenge, that is education gaps in madrasas, that is Islamic bias in the textbook, and the next is lack of standardized curriculum and teacher qualification, and the next is OPEC funding and governance issues. So in this topic, we discussed what are the challenges faced by the Muslim education in India, what is the status of Muslim education in India, and what can be done to enhance the Muslim education and protect the madrasa education in India. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, despite targeted schemes, the education status of Muslims in India remains a concern. Analyze the challenges and suggest measures to enhance educational access and equity for the community. And it is a 10-mark question, and you have to write around 150 words. Write the answer and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. So with this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's editorial analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for listening to me, and have a nice day.